Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I'm joined, it's been a minute, but I'm joined by my friend Randy Dumoulin. What's up, Randy? How you doing?
What's up, Patrick? Well, we know what we just watched. The Warriors just lay an absolute egg, in Game 6 at home at Chase Center. Game ended less than 15 minutes ago, so this is the reaction right here.
Yeah, this is freshly in our feelings. So the Warriors, they lost 118-99 in a closeout game at home in Game 6 that, I mean, for the most part, I know I predicted Warriors in 6. I think a lot of people predicted Warriors in 6, and they like you said, they laid an egg. And I was telling you before we started recording that there's Twitter. I have this group text, and I started this Discord, which if you're listening to, you should join it. And it was just like I was going in circles, saying the same stuff, and everybody else was saying the same things. Like they could not believe that they were playing so sloppy, that they were not engaged, that this is, I've talked all season about bad habits and flipping the switch in theory, but that those bad habits, they are who you are and they will show up. I thought it would cost the Warriors one game. I predicted the Warriors would lose two games. One would be because Mike Brown just, knew the team so well, he would figure some way to win, and that the Warriors would eventually kick one away because of bad habits. And I thought that game was game 2, and then it became game 6. I'm just at a loss for words. There's a part of me that if you weren't joining me, Randy, I was going to be like, you know what? The Warriors, they kind of half-assed it. I'm going to half-ass this, but since you're here, I won't half-ass it. So
no, they definitely just didn't bring it, man. Like the Kings, as inexperienced as they are, they have so many guys on their roster who, is their first playoff series, is their first closeout game, first elimination game. They're on the road, and they didn't look scared at all. I mean, Fox with a broken finger was amazing. They had Keegan Murray hitting shots. Kevin Huerter finally showed up. Not taking anything from the Kings. I mean, the Warriors lost this game themselves. So, yeah.
I mean, the Warriors, they, this is one of those games where you're at home and you are supposed to, give the young Kings a little bit of shock and awe, right? You're supposed to just like punch them in the mouth from the outset. And at the very beginning, the Warriors looked lackadaisical, unfocused.
They gave them the game from the start. It was like 8-0 in the first 2 minutes of the game. And I mean, they never quite got it going. I mean, they might have tied a couple times, and Steph hit five threes, but just like never really got on a run, at all. It was super hard to even get back on defense, right? Because after they would score, you would have Fox just sprinting back down right into the paint and just finishing with all these different reverses and hooks. Like what a tough watch.
Yeah, I mean, they gave the Kings an opening and they took it. Credit to the Kings. Mike Brown, that's a difference right there. I said after game 5 that I didn't think Mike Brown had any more wrinkles for the Warriors. I didn't think De'Aaron Fox would play better. But, that's what having a coach like Mike Brown does. He's been there with the Warriors, and I'm sure he gave those young guys a lot of confidence. And again, we all talked about, the Warriors' killer instinct hopefully shows up and that there's blood in the water, go get it. But like that blood in the water was the Warriors in this one. And the Kings clearly they started salivating and they just rammed it down the Warriors' throats. I mean, they were smoking the Warriors on rebounds. I think after the first quarter, it was, 22-11 rebound advantage for the Kings. And then halftime it was 32-20. And then by the end of the game, what did they finish up at? It was 53-42, including garbage time. And I mean, do you think the Warriors were, I mean, they look gassed. I mean, do you think that the one day off was a big deal for them?
Yeah, definitely. I think that they had the 2 nights off, right, between 4 and 5, and this one day off, pretty clearly showed the Kings are obviously a younger team. Um, the Warriors just like struggled to build momentum. They were kind of just chucking shots, overhelping. After they overhelped and gave up a wide open shot, after a late contest, there'd be no one under the rim. It'd be another offensive rebound. So it's like all of these, like you said, bad tendencies that we saw all year showed up all at once. So it was the worst kind of party.
Who do you put this game on?
Man, I don't know if you can pin it on one guy. It's just like, Kerr is going to have to take the fall just because he's the coach and that's kind of his job, right? And that's, what everyone's going to be talking about in the next day, 24, 48 hours before, game 7. But, honestly, like Clay was chucking, Poole didn't play defense, Dante was missing his rotations. Like it is just really, everything compiled on itself. They were missing free throws. Like everything that could go wrong pretty much went wrong. Like I don't even know if they had like a memorable two good buckets or 2 good defensive stops. Like they really just couldn't quite build anything all night.
I commended the Warriors after game 5 for closing every quarter and closing that game and being convincing that they had found kind of a rhythm, that they were clicking in the way the playoff Warriors can click. But this was just the complete opposite. There were times where it just felt, even early on, that that maybe they could turn it up in the second half, but in the first half, you were just seeing their tiredness and their lack of focus and lack of defensive intensity. And when you look at the box score, you just go down. Wiggins 5 of 13, Steph 9 for 21, Clay 8 for 20, Poole 2 for 11, Dante 1 for 5. They smoked a ton of layups once again. I mean, a lot of this is just, to me, it's just, not to get too emo about this, but I just think it's like kind of inexcusable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's all the same kind of frustrations, right? It's all the mistakes they were making. We've seen 1,000 times this season. Like it's not like this was sort of like an unexpected. Oh, they blew this. They always run this. Like it all the things that we've seen trip them up this season. We're here. So they were just bad on defense, a step late. Guys were getting to the rim. They just, had more aggression, the Kings did. And the Warriors never quite matched it, even though I think they had the lead, right, after the first quarter. But that was, that was like the, least comfortable lead of all time, right? That quickly evaporated. I don't know the last bad Warriors playoff game like this. I guess you could say Memphis, right, last year, where they just got blown out.
Right.
But even, I mean, with the stakes, I don't know. They this was bad at home.
In the fact that there were a ton of these bad habits that they've shown all season, it was even more so in the sense that, yes, they did this throughout the season, but they also did it when we felt like they'd turned a corner so many times, right? Like that's how I felt after game 5. And when it was really, really important to get the game, there were like tons of quote unquote must win games all season long. But this is just one that obviously you don't have to have it, but you kind of have to have it because you don't want to go back to Sacramento and, again, have one day off and try to win a road game again, which still isn't your strong suit, and be even more tired when these young guys are just running downhill down your throats. And then also, the Lakers Grizzlies series, that game is in game 6. It's going on right now. But like, you don't want the Lakers to win and then you have to play another game, or you want to win this game and be able to rest a little bit more because the Grizzlies win game 6 and they keep going. You know what I mean? It's like, these are all the opportunities at your fingertips. And again, it's not one of those things where like, well, they gave it the old college try and they just got beat. No, man.
Yeah.
They coughed it up. They blew this one, plain and simple. And it's one of those things where it's like, as a fan, like you're frustrated, but it's also like you kind of shrug your shoulders and it's, hey, you know, you get what you deserve, man. You are who you are sometimes.
Yeah. And it makes so much sense. I feel like that this season would come down to a game 7, right? Like there's so much change that, that could potentially be coming to this franchise this summer. Like, I don't know how much you want to talk about, Myers' contract kind of ambiguity, Draymond's player option. They want, Clay wants an extension. How are you going to, add to the roster or keep it together or not? What's Dante doing? Like, there's really just, a sense of finality, so of course it'd come down to a game 7. It's going to be 48 minutes. I hope they shoot better that game than they did today.
Yeah, well, they shot 37.6% from the field, 31 from three. And, all season long, live and die by the three, right? Like Kerr even said at some point, which actually frustrated me. There was a game after the trade deadline where they just kept chucking threes and lost. And he said, we're a jump shooting team. We're built that way. And It's like, but I mean, it was just frustrating because, they just traded like Wiseman, and I was still in my Wiseman feelings and stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, the guy could score. I know he has other issues, but still, it's just, and then, live and die by the three, right? 10 for 32.
It's how you generate those threes too. Like even the Kings were getting their threes by driving and kicking. They're touching, making contact with the paint, touch and go. They're kicking out to rotating guys. It looked like a little like the Warriors, right? But after, no, they never built momentum. It was tough to watch, man.
Yeah. And that's a great point, man. That's a great point. Just like the way they ran their offense, the Kings did, whereas the Warriors were just after halftime, they looked the same, as the first half. It's just like, okay,
there were a couple possessions where like Wiggins would get Monk on him or Fox, and he'd, try and take him down into the paint and score. And I feel like they could have done that with like every other guy that had an advantage or just any type of like, they were really, really getting up those threes, man. Like, it was that was a Warriors game. That's the 2023 Warriors right there.
Yeah, and it's wild to me because it's not like the Kings shot particularly well, right? They shot 40% from the field and about 38% from three, which is significantly better. They shot 84% from the line, whereas the Warriors shot 71. And the Warriors went to the line more. They missed 10 free throws, whereas the Kings missed 4. And the turnovers and the fouls were pretty close. The Kings fouled the Warriors 3 more times. The rebounding, the second chance points, and just, you could look at stats, but just the eye test in this one was bad.
You could just tell. Steph missed 3 free throws. I don't know if that's ever happened. Like I know that he misses 1 sometimes, 2 in a game, like maybe once a year. Like I don't even know. Like 3 is in a playoff game at home.
Yeah,
like, that's just an anomaly.
Like in a closeout game. Oh, come on. And I said this during the season, and I want to know what you think about this. But a lot of times when the Warriors lost games that they should have had, it felt like they just expected to win, that they just expected the other team to fold, that they expected the quote unquote championship DNA to just overwhelm the gym or something like that. And I'll be honest, I got that sense a little bit in this one where, everybody was hyping up Game 6 Clay. I retweeted like somebody had something about Game 6 Clay, and I was like, sure, why not? And Clay was hunting, and it felt like they just assumed that they were going to win this one.
Mm-hmm. They were just like, we're gonna do it off vibes alone. Like no execution, right? No execution, no scheme. Just go win. Like we're just gonna win.
Vibes. Why are you gonna win? Oh man, vibes, man.
We just think we got it. Like it was a bad game.
Yeah, but you alluded to before about how all these questions about the Warriors at the end of the season, in the off season. And it's so funny because doing this podcast, I've talked about those things a lot. And after the first game, after the second game, then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, bring them all back. They're looking good. And then after this game, it's like, blow it up. I mean, that's the manic nature of fandom, and especially like Warriors fandom. What'd you think about the small lineup that Mike Brown threw out there? Instead of throwing out Alex Len and whatnot, he played Terrence Davis a lot and Trey Lyles.
It was clearly super effective. I think the Warriors were messing it up for themselves as much as the Kings were taking advantage of it. I think it was sort of unexpected. So it was great that that Davis was able to come in there and just make an impact. Like he had sort of the impact that maybe Moody had in, game 3, right?
Mm-hmm,
when Draymond was out and he came in and hit 2-3 threes, playing defense. Yeah, the Warriors just didn't have an answer. Like it was never quite sure. Like, did they have Looney out there? Were there two bigs? Were they starting small again with Poole out there, the starters? I don't know what to expect in Game 7. Do they put Draymond back in the starting lineup? Like, just go with the guys, for possibly one final game? Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly know either. I would think that they would, put Draymond back into the starting lineup because Poole played poorly, and it's like once you lose with this, switch it back up, And yeah. I felt that at the beginning of the game, they were so flat that I didn't see a team out there. I saw 5 dudes, and once Draymond came in, I was like, well, thank God, because this team needs like a jolt of some Draymond energy. Right. And I think he gets like 2 fouls in the first couple minutes that he's in the game. And I'm like, oh, so no one's going to play well tonight. They just decided to mail this one in. Game 7, man. It's funny, right? Because like I originally had you penciled in to come in for Game 4. You couldn't make it. And the concern was like, that was potentially a Warriors.
We had been down 0-2, right? And then
and Draymond just got suspended, and you were like, "Oh, this is going to be the elimination game." and then they made it, and I messaged you. I was like, "Hey, you went from an elimination game to a closeout game," and yeah, no, not that. And every time over the last couple of days, I was like, I'm gonna, peek. On the last episode, I talked to my friend Calvin about who do you want to see, the Lakers or the Grizzlies? I said, I'm gonna tempt fate. I'm gonna talk about that. Yeah. And right now it doesn't matter. What do you think happens in Game 7? You said you don't know what to expect, but just off the top of your head.
I think you see one of Steph and Clay have a pretty bad game, but the other have the complete opposite. Like, I think one of them has to bounce back. I think both of them should play, better. But, I don't know if they combine for 50 or 60. I think it'd be more like, Steph is going to get his 30 somehow, right? Either he's going to get some calls or he's going to, do his thing. But, Clay had a bad game today. Like, it was bad for probably his narrative and his energy and the team's kind of overall agenda. And you almost knew going in, right, that he was just going to try and lean into that and try and chuck. And there was one magnificent air ball. That was like, it
was glorious.
That was impressive. Yeah, he's so ambitious sometimes. Steph has to play well. I expect him to. I hope Wiggins can bring something. I think that he tried to maybe assert himself today, and it just didn't quite, get into his favor. The Kings just kept coming back and scoring. You couldn't really get him into a rhythm. But I mean, the last one you saw was pretty much the formula that you kind of thought they'd take against today, or thought that they could kind of replicate, right, in Game 5, where you had 4 different guys in double figures. Looney was rebounding everything. You have guys like everyone has 6, 7, 8 assists just passing to each other, and it's really unselfish. Today was pretty selfish looking, like overall, like a lot of just ISOing, come set a screen, and it just didn't look quite like it should.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They only had 20 assists in this one, and
that's
I,
low for
yeah,
Warriors game, right? Like
that's really low. Yeah. I mean, wasn't the goal always throughout this Kerr era 30? Like getting
that's
30
kind of
assists.
you could assume, right? Like they led the league pretty much every year, right? I don't think, and or at least I think Houston might have gotten 1 year. I don't know, but this was not it. Optimistically, like I think they pull it out. They did it once. They won Game 5 in Sacramento. Um, I don't think that they're ready to go home. Like that, I think that at a certain point you got to realize like this could be the last basketball game that you play as a roster. Like these guys have been
Mm-hmm.
together for 12, 10, 12 years, some of them, and even you know the coaching staff too, right? You have Myers in the front office, like everyone in the organization has to kind of feel that type of energy, right?
Yeah.
So I expect them to win, but it's going to be really interesting at whatever point this season ends, whether that's on Sunday, whether that's in the next round, another round, who knows?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of questions, unless unless it ends in a championship. So we'll
Right.
see.
Yeah. I mean, I do have hope because they didn't play a ton of minutes in this one, relatively speaking. Wiggins only had 33, Steph 36, Clay 35. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just a couple minutes here and there. But then, like at the end of the day, it's still just a early turnaround. And is this Sunday game early? Like,
it's a 12:30 tip, dude. That's like that's hilarious. That first half is probably they might be playing the same exact basketball as they played today. I'm not sure.
oh man, as long as it's not like the game 7 between the Suns and the Mavericks from last year, that
Gosh.
they can't go out like that. But it was funny when the Warriors were clanking threes. I was like, oh man, this is like that one game where the Rockets.
Did we go 0 for 27 in at any point in this game? Like it felt like it.
Yeah, and there were those two moments from Poole at the end of the game where it was just like, oh, that epitomizes this whole evening, which was one, there was like a loose ball and he couldn't get his hands on it. He just kind of
Like
stumbled
I was
out of
like,
bounds at like mid court.
stop running, just pick it up, stop moving.
And his like legs are flailing.
Oh
And
man,
then
you missed
after
the
that, the missed dunk.
layup.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Like layup dunk. I mean, whatever it was attempted to be, and it's tough. It's always a shame because when I like Poole going to the basket. I've always said the last couple of years he's one of the few guys that can get to the line consistently off the bounce, and I like it when he's aggressive in that respect. But there's just times where he looks like he's just hunting the foul. And this is beyond the falling down and flailing and all that, but it actually doesn't even look like he's trying to get the shot off.
mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate because as opposed to somebody like a Malik Monk, or even people who Poole's been comped to, Poole at the basket, even though he can in an open court like dunk it pretty easily,
Right.
he relies so much on getting a step ahead and having some craft because he doesn't get up to the rim on layups on his drives. And I actually think that's a lot of the reason he doesn't get a lot of foul calls because a lot of the contact is low. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they let some of that stuff go, whereas the contact up high is easier for refs to call or they're more willing to call. It's just a thought, but like, man, Poole's had some rough nights, and there were a couple times where just defensively, man, I don't know. I don't even want to get into the details.
And it's so funny because like you were just saying, right? He relies so much on that first step and like taking advantage of guys who are maybe overplaying, and it's like he's getting cooked by his own recipe. Like every time he's on defense, he's getting scored on exactly how he scores on other defenders. Like guys are
Yeah,
coming around him, he's overplaying, he's not in position, he like is just putting his hands out there. It's pretty funny to watch. Like he knows how to score on this defense, but he doesn't know how to play it himself. Like
yeah, no, that's a really good point. That's a really good point because there was one frustrating moment, and you watch the game, you don't catch everything, but every now and then I'll just like watch Poole for a couple of possessions on defense, And there was one, it was a kind of a slow break by the Kings. I guess kind of a fast break, but like I forgot who had the ball. It was either Monk or Fox coming down. And again, I forgot who it was on the Kings. And he went to the left wing beyond the 3-point line. Somebody picked up ball, and Poole was next to that guy and
Mhm.
let the other guy get behind him. And the ball got passed out to the 3-point line, and the guy just he nailed the three. It's like it's been years since I played organized basketball,
Yeah.
and even I remember to do that. You know what I mean? It's like you don't need three guys stopping ball unless Steve Kerr is like, build a wall. But I don't think he's telling them to do that. It's frustrating. I mean, it's the Jordan Poole experience, as I like to call it, where it's like, hey, he'll hit the big three and he'll dance, and Twitter will talk about baddies, and then he'll have these moments on defense or when he coughs up the ball or falls down where it's like, man, that's the other $24 million Jordan Poole that we
Yeah.
that we know. Uh,
That contract is going to be a discussion, man. This weekend, this summer, like, man, that yeah, he had a bad game, so he's
yeah.
gonna get some criticism. He should be like, can't really excuse a lot of the mistakes he was making. It's again the stuff we've seen all year. Like it's such like a domino effect, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
once you're out of position on D, like you're giving up open threes, and once you close out, they could, it's a drive and they get to the rim, and it's just like a error upon error, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it felt like, at least in this game 6.
Would you have liked to have seen any Kuminga minutes out there before garbage time?
I think that maybe like after halftime, in those first 4 to 6 minutes of the third quarter, like it didn't seem like, again, it was pretty I think it was at 7, like for maybe a good portion of the third quarter. It wasn't garbage time for the entirety of the second half. They just never
Right.
quite strung it together to get closer than 7 or 6. I don't even know if they got 5, at any point. But
Sure.
yeah, like I think that he could make an impact. I think that he's clearly dejected. You've seen the videos of him on the bench and Iguodala talking to him. He made some mistakes, I think, the last time he had played in game 2 or 3. And, at this point, like, I'd rather see him out there than Anthony Lamb. Like, I don't know if we're getting, if it comes down to it in game 7, like, why not Kuminga? Like, I don't know. But if he gets out there and he makes an impact like that, that'd be good, because you'd love to get him something out of this postseason. It feels like he hasn't quite left his, he hasn't gotten experience. Moody has, which was nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's so odd how it's switched back to what everybody thought it was going to be preseason, right?
It was like last playoffs, right, where Moody was playing minutes, right, and he played against Dallas. He played against, and yeah, it was.
Well, Kuminga played against Memphis. I remember that, but it never felt like, oh, one got benched for the other. It felt like, oh, these are two rookies, and let's try this guy, and then let's try that guy. But I would have loved to have seen Kuminga at the beginning of the second half at some point. Not obviously not starting, but like there was clearly a certain point to me in the close to the end of the third where, okay, this game is in the balance. He's not going to put him in. I would have loved to have seen just a jolt of energy.
Right. Like someone who can bring something, right? Like be or be just hyper, be energy, it's just,
somebody that could put the Kings on their heels and make them have to be worrying about somebody else, like athletically and physically like that. And, just see, give him spot minutes, give him 2 minutes, give him 3 minutes, see if he can give this Warriors team some life because, they just didn't have it. I mean, they were missing so many shots. It had to be, at least my opinion, like fatigue, right?
Right. It was like bad jumpers. Like they're settling for jumpers. And it, it just felt like they didn't have a rim threat at all. Like they weren't cutting like they normally would, or they weren't either the lanes weren't open, or, I don't know, just a step slow mentally, physically. I don't know if anything was there tonight. Like, I don't know if there's any single positive that you could bring from this game. No one got hurt. like,
Yeah. Hey,
so,
Moody played well
yeah, Moody.
again, and I'll hang my hat on that. I think the title of this episode will be "The Moody Game." No, just kidding. um, yeah, it's funny too because all that chatter about the off season, it's like I talked about that throughout the season because you never know if they're going to make the playoff, make the play in, get eliminated, and
Yeah.
so it's always like, oh, this could be the last one. Like when Harrison Barnes, if he had hit that shot, he could have put like the nail in the coffin in the dynasty. And even though he only played 15 minutes in this one, so I guess he's moving further out of the rotation. But like he still has that chance. They could end it. And let me ask you, just hypothetically, if the Warriors were to lose Game 7, would you? I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not ready for that.
I don't think that it would be the end. I know that they the biggest question to me is Draymond, right? It's kind of Draymond and Myers,
Yeah.
as sort of that joint deal, because that's I guess culturally, what do we know? But from what they seem to be, to the fans and to the public, like those two are just gigantic, kind of monumental pillars, right, in the organization and in the culture. And either of their exits, would pretty clearly, I think, start like a new chapter for this team. It wouldn't be the Myers era anymore. It would be the Splash Brothers without Draymond, there's a lot of interesting kind of combinations and outcomes. But what I expect to happen is Draymond probably negotiates like his last contract of his career, right? I think in his podcast or some other appearance, he had said that he wants to play about 4 more years. Whether Myers is on board or not, I expect Draymond to stay. I think I'd be shocked if he was on a completely different team. But Myers is another pretty interesting situation because of like you have teams like the Clippers, you have teams, I don't know, that there are teams that could clearly be interested in his services and his role as basketball. I think what was his role here? Basketball ops, president of basketball ops.
Yeah,
right? It's GM, the boss, and yeah, like that's the summer to me. I mean, Dante, whether he takes that player option or not, would be cool to see him back. Didn't have a great game today, but overall, I think it's been a pretty good season for him. He'd probably get more money elsewhere. What else would be kind of a decision to be made?
Would you move off Poole?
I mean, you'd have to just like stage an intervention or something, man. Like there are some deep, like deep-seated parts of his game that I think need bolster. He just needs like some principles or some, I don't know. There are some things that he misses sometimes that you can't miss if you're making that much money, if you're playing on a team like this. So, I mean, if they find a deal, if it's I don't know who takes him on that contract. I don't know who has kind of the situation that would that he would thrive in. But it's going to be a story. That's what his play has brought us to, right? Pretty bad game.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because last game I was talking about, Lakers or Memphis, and now it's like, well, now we're back to talking about like Draymond or Myers. Yeah, it's funny because I mean, I guess when I sit back and think, I'm like, who would give Draymond 4 years? Who else in the league would give him that? He could leave out of spite, take less, but that's a big question to me. And I would like to think he would come back, take a contract that paid him less, but for longer. And then Myers, I thought the Clippers too, but man, do you want that right now? Or maybe I don't know. Maybe he rides out with Steph, but again, that also depends on if Lacob wants to pay him, because I know that's probably the big thing, right?
It's the $400 million kind of like just hard cap that, right, that Lacob is putting in. I think that he said, right, that it's just like at that point it's just like unfathomable at any point, whether or not. And it's the new CBA, there's all these new kind of stipulations, right, for these spending teams like the Warriors or the Clippers. And so as those take effect, like it really does objectively, like, make it harder for this team to just stay together as is. Like, whether that's Myers stepping out, whether that's Draymond finding a different situation. And yeah, like if either of those guys leave the picture, like you're looking at a new organization to me.
Yeah.
Least, with maybe most of the same core, but like a clearly different core, like yeah, those are the two guys. So if they stick around and they're clearly going to try and put together one or two more runs, right? Like, because that's what Steph looks capable of. That's what you would hope kind of Wiggins and Poole help provide, or at least kind of supplement, right? But yeah, a lot of questions to be asked, man. Like it didn't look like a formula that could work today, which was so funny because it works, so well in Game 5, and it works, 3 and 4. I don't know.
Regarding Dante, yeah, I've never thought that he was going to pick up his player option. I mean, it's like Otto Porter Jr. picked his up in Toronto because he's hurt, right? It's like, and then with Gary Payton here, his minutes are going to be diminished.
You have Payton for another 2 or 3 years, right? Yeah. You have like $10 million a year. It's funny. It's the contract that they didn't want to sign him to initially, right? And then they had to forfeiting Wiseman in the picks or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, and as I always say, like, it really depends on how the season ends. Like, if they make a long run, then the calculus changes for each of these variables, right? It's like, the further they go, the more likely they can all run it back potentially, or they'd be willing to. But if they get, it's all about like losing in the first round and losing badly. It's like, oh, well, what's the point in paying all these guys? And then also it's like, it just sets off this chain reaction that, I mean, we know now that the NBA is a year-round season. There's no like time off per se because it's like free agency, draft, all the all that stuff. But this Warriors offseason, man, it's going to be way more interesting than the regular season because the regular season was boring because it was the same mediocre brand of basketball all the time, pretty much. But the offseason is going to be really, really, really fascinating for the Warriors and Warriors fans. But we're not there yet. We got one more game. And I guess because there's a Warriors podcast, I'm picking the Warriors to win.
Right. Like I don't know what I would do if I didn't pick them.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know, like, at what point would I be like comfortable with the season ending? Because, no one wants to lose in the first round. You're the defending champs. You have Steph Curry on the team. Like, everyone's healthy. I mean, is it like, oh, like, at least we made Game 7 of the semifinals or Game 7 of the conference finals? Like, I don't know what point it is to kind of talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it was completely different expectations. That completely were not my expectations of this team. I think at the start of this year when we had talked, I had them grabbing the 3 seed, which is so funny because that's the seed that Sacramento ended up grabbing. And I gave them maybe a play-in spot. I'm not even sure. But they, absolutely had a great year. The Warriors, to this point, have not, like, they've found themselves in a lot of good situations. They got the 6 seed, they avoided the play-in, but it's the same team. These are the same guys. It's the same mistakes. It's like they're solving it on the fly now. It's not like they've, the corner is a circle. Like, this is the team.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, we'll see how it goes because this is just the first round for them too, right? It's like, it's exhausting. If they get past this, then they get either the Lakers or the Grizzlies. And that's going to, each version of that second round series has its own level of insane intensity and challenges. But, it's funny to, like, you don't want to overreact to one game, but I feel like this is a game where you can react very strongly to. So I'll just leave it at that. Any final thoughts?
I'd like to see maybe 2 layup attempts for every 1 3. That's so ambitious. It's not going to happen. They've the shooters are too good for that to come true. But like, just, I don't know, layups, man. That's like so often this game. It was like they would come up the floor and it'd be like screen, handoff, another screen, entry pass, run around, you know, pass back out to the perimeter. And it was just like, God, like, can you just try and get to the rim? Like, you try and take a layup. Maybe you can pass to someone and they can take the layup or get fouled, or like, they really just wanted to shoot jump shots today. So, you know, we'll see if that happens in Game 7. I'm expecting good things, but, you know, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, to their credit, I will say that they averaged about 40 3-point attempts per game this season, and they only shot 32. But again, I think that's because they smoked a lot at the rim on layups and stuff. And
free throws were pretty bad to spare.
Right. Yeah, and they gave up a lot on the rebounding end. But anyway, man, I will let you go from this purgatory of a game, and but thanks for coming on. Y'all can find Randy on Twitter, where he's really prolific. Random, RANDUM.
I've changed it a little bit. It's prod now. Unfortunately, it's not NBA, but it is. It does still have. It's all basketball content. Yeah. So,
okay. Random prod. RANDUMPROD.
There you go.
Get at it.
Great talking to you, Patrick. Great talk. Not a great game. Let's wait for Game 7.
All right, that's it.